Hello and welcome back to another episode of Supercoach Insider. My name is Ben.
And I'm Chris.
I'm Swizz.
Hey.
And thank you for joining us. This is the Balls of Steele special, and it's because it's brought to you by Manscaped and obviously Jack Steele causing a lot of dilemmas this week as well. Chris, you joining us from is that a background or are you in some weird obscure place today?
I'm in Sydney. This is my hotel suite. I'm staying in Parramatta tonight for work for the next 3 days. So yeah, so hopefully there's no drive-by shooting at my gym tomorrow morning, which should be good. It's just obviously here for work. I mean, this looks like I'm a star, right? With all this lighting, this rig that I've got going on. I mean, just gotta love it.
I was jealous when you said you're in Sydney until you said Parramatta. And I'm like, oh, you couldn't pay me enough to go there. Swizz, how are you today?
It's actually pretty good. It's like the size of Brisbane.
Parramatta's a shit,
reminds me of home.
Mate, I'm good. I'm good, mate. You know, Tigers had a win on the weekend. Things are going good. Told you, buddy, branched out to NFL Supercoach for keeper leagues this year. Just joined one today, so I'm going to be trying to juggle my AFL and my NFL research all this week. But yeah, mate, no, it's flying along.
There you go. If you have any NFL tips, Swizz, what's your handle again?
Yeah, Swizz26. Thanks to everybody who got in contact this week with the Q&A and questions and that. And yeah, I was nearly buddy trending this week after my dual position comment about Patrick Cripps getting ruck status. So feel free to get in touch.
Yep, any NFL tips go there. But before we move on, SC Insider 100, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Also, all the audio platforms as well, so Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, you name it. Get on there and get aboard. And on the YouTube, Chris.
Search for a Supercoach Insider. And look, guys, I think I should probably start by saying I have won Supercoach this week because I think I beat you guys again. You two Gorn owners, you.
Hey, Chris,
listen to him.
Do not trump.
I had to start with that. To lead in.
No, you don't. Excuse me, Chris. You do not start with that because today support for Supercoach Insider is brought to you by Manscaped, who's the best in the men's below the waist grooming. Their products are precision engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 4 million men worldwide. Yes, in case you missed that last week, that's 8 million balls. Join us, 20% off. We've got our packages. We've got all of our kits going on. Chris would have taken it down there with him because... actually, maybe not, because he would have done it before he left to his missus, make sure he's all tidy.
I legitimately did do it before I left. I'm not even joking. I don't know why you travel. Like, I'm not with my partner, not with anyone, but I felt like I needed to. I got to prepare myself to travel for 3 days on my own. It's very.
Well, you know why, Chris? It's because you're a dick, and when you manscape, you're an even bigger dick. Anyway, SC Insider 100, go to manscaped.com, get your 20% off, including free shipping worldwide. Join us, and thank you for everyone that has joined us and hit us up and used that last week. Manscaped.com. Thank you very much. And I'm also having my splash here, boys, because
where's my?
Yeah, I keep drinking the orange. I keep drinking. Every time you've seen me for the last month, I reckon I've been having.
You just smash the watermelon one. I want the orange and passion fruit. But Swizz, I had a question for you, mate. Did you shave the goods? Did you get all up in it?
Oh, did you use it? Not just on a koala?
Have a session. Did you have a session with yourself?
I'll leave the session to yourself for you up there in Parramatta, mate. What happens in Paris stays in Paris. So.
No,
it's a very good, mate. A very good product. Let's we'll talk up Manscaped. Yeah, mate, very good product and that. So yeah, everybody get on 20% discount if you go through us.
What happens in Paris stays in the family, apparently. Okay, so let's.
Thank God nobody
get
from
on
Sydney
there, Chris.
Calls this show.
We do need to let Chris toot his own horn a little bit. Apart from the fact that Chris didn't get gone, and I did after I was tooting my horn 167 or whatever he went, or 170. I was like, yeehaw! And Chris is like considering getting him. He completely ignored him, so we have to give Chris his dues. But also, you traded out another person that is a hot topic this week, Chris. So tell everyone how good you are. You got 1 minute.
Oh, mate, I also traded out Canelio this week. And you know what? You guys were complaining in the chat so hardcore. And I'm sitting there just like Dr. Evil, like, it was fantastic. Yeah, it was really good. After all week of being like, nah, Butters is gone. Butters is out of my team. Butters couldn't go and get. I decided I would go the other way and go, you know what? Butters is great. Butters is amazing. He's playing North. He's got to be at least just score 100. He's only got 105 break even. I think he got 104. So I looked at Cornelio, and Cornelio was going to go regardless, and I needed to trade a round 12 player. The risk with trading Cornelio is that McVeigh plays him in a different role. So, but I just didn't think that I would want to wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I really got only until round 12 to make the decision to get rid of him, and I had to get rid of a round 12 buy player. So I decided I'd trade him because the other option was trading Nick Martin, but that was probably a week early, and now it's probably the right time to trade Nick Martin, or it could be you could wait on him, but it was either him or him. I thought, look, worst case with Zach Butters is he can be a swingman loophole on your bench. I just don't have the same confidence with Cornelio. If he's not playing a midfield role, he's not going to be viable even as a loop player. So just thought, more chance of him dropping poorer scores, more chance of he was also 30K more and pretty much peak price. Like I felt like I don't see him making much more money. I'm pretty confident I can cash him out. The other benefit was with that extra money, I could also get to the next player. I could get to Clary that little bit easier, which was my trade-in target. So yeah, it just made it, everything just worked that little bit easier with Cornelio out of the team as opposed to Butters, and that's the way I went. So I suppose I got lucky, but all of the justification was there. Like the thought process was there. If it was role, at least Butters still has the role. He's playing like shit, but I've got a long-term plan to still maintain Butters regardless. But one of them had to go, and I just went with the road less traveled and got kissed on the fucking dick. So probably, you know what it probably was? It was probably because I've manscaped for the last 2 weeks. And so now I am getting kissed on the dick. But before that, I was not. So what I'm saying is Manscaped will do it for you.
Oh, shameless. Hey, also shout out here. I'm with Jock Supercoach, Jock Reynolds Supercoach boys tomorrow night doing some of the mailbag. So you boys will miss out on that. They're also on the Manscaped wagon. I didn't realize that until I saw some of their promos. So there you go. But obviously, SC Insider 100 is the code you want to use. Fuck those boys.
Listen to Ben leaving the group and doing his own solo projects. And that.
Excuse me,
we knew the time would come. Lead singer,
hey,
next week he comes out.
Gets the big deal.
Ben and the Supercoach Insider boys.
What the fuck? Hey, Swizz, mate. Last one in, first one out. Swizz. Last one in, first one out. Swizz.
Mate, I'll just stay here as the drummer behind the scenes and that. I'll let you have all the credit. You know.
I love it.
Hey, yeah, you should be lucky we're even letting you see your face there, Swizz.
You've managed to blur Chris out today, so you know we're on the chopping blocks here. We know there's a few people trying to bloody snipe us and take our spots. So
who? No one's got the balls to stick with us. Anyway, so it's
those shaven
balls. We do need to start landing our train a little bit here. So Chris has been extremely lucky and extremely fortunate. This week particularly, and there's one thing I do need to mention. Chris, sorry, rounding our plane here. Cornelio, I wasn't even in the chat talking about how bad Cornelio was because I was just focusing on Whitfield. I didn't even realize how bad Cornelio was. I was like looking at Whitfield's score. I'm like, man, how much does Whitfield suck? And then I had a look at final scores, and I was like, oh my gosh, Cornelio is actually worse than Whitfield. So I didn't even notice that.
Is Sicily still 450K? Because I'd like to sideways Luke Ryan to him. If
anyone. Well. Sicily is $150,000 more, which brings us into Sicily. I'll get your opinion here because for me, Sicily is 150,000 more. He's basically 600 now, right? There's no point in you paying that amount of money for a guy who is now 46% owned because everyone else got him either at basement price or on the way to being still cheap and relevant. Did you agree with me here? Because with me, I'm kind of hoping, like I know I don't want to pay 600 just to kind of negate someone that everyone has. I'd hope that he gets injured or gets COVID or something, and then that kind of helps break the mold back in someund else. Or you just pay up and try and negate.
I think you pay up if it suits your team. I mean, the benefit of Sicily, he's one of the only decent round 14 premium defenders. So, I mean, most good defenders are in the round 12 or 13 bye. So the round 14 really has what, Jack Crisp, maybe Pendles, Zorko, and that's it, Sicily. So
Yep.
I can understand why you go for him because a lot of teams are trying to now get in those players. So he's still a viable target because he has that buy. Those other two buys really hard to navigate from a defense purpose because even the rookies that most people have, McCartan and SDK, they're both also round 13. So they're not going to be able to provide cover in that round 13 either. So if you're loaded up on there, if you've got Dawson, if you've got Stewart, if you've got Withen, etc., then you're really going to struggle to try and complement those guys. However, you can bring in Sicily. He covers you through those buys, and you probably only have, I'd probably say most people only have the one round 14 guy in, Jackie Crisp, so or similar. And then the guys that they want to upgrade to, a lot of guys, still looking to upgrade to Doherty, still looking to, if they don't have Hewitt, they're upgrading to Hewitt. They're probably not getting Whitfield because Whitfield sucks. There's also, Jack Sinclair, he could be back on the radar now with Steele out for 6 to 8 weeks. So people have these round 12 guys that they're not going to be trading to right now, but they could look at a round 14 guy. They could still look at the round 13 guys if it suits them, but I just don't think that many people have the team to be able to complement that unless they've held Dacos long and he can carry them through, etc. So yeah, I don't mind Sicily. I mean, it's nothing against him as a player. It's still the only real reason you still don't like Sicily at 600k or at any price is the same reason. It's just because his body history, his role history, that's really the only thing. The difference is this year. Well, obviously Clarko is not Sam Mitchell, and Sam Mitchell's to so far hasn't. He's been tempted. He's had guys go down the forward line and hasn't touched the role of James Sicily. So that seems to, at this point, fingers crossed, it seems to appease that side of things. And we saw Sicily average 108 in years where he was thrown forward for a full game and got what I think it was a 43 or something stupid. So his average, he can actually average that 110 plus if he maintains that behind the ball role. So body wise, he hasn't shown anything there or any repercussions from his recovery. And he hasn't thrown a punch at anyone so far. So, I mean, I kind of feel like, why wouldn't you? Like, if I could get him in my team, if I had 600k for a defender, yeah, sure. Why wouldn't I? I'd still like to. My problem is my last defensive upgrade. I've got a sideways from Ryan, which means I've got to sideways him out of a round 14 by player anyway. And I can't get Sicily because I'm just losing a week's value. So he doesn't suit my team, but I can completely understand a lot of people looking at James Sicily and saying, yep, that's the guy I want.
I just hate overpaying. You know me. I'll go down in spite.
It's
Aaron
definitely not
Hall.
free.
Damn you, Aaron Hall. I will go down in spite.
Mate, he looked so good on the weekend. Like Lynch.
I know, and that's the problem.
It's funny because it'd get kicked there, and either Sicily takes an intercept mark or Lynch takes a mark and kicks a goal. And that it was, you couldn't nearly give both of them votes because Sicily absolutely dominated. And we're kind of lucky Sicily didn't go 200 because he was killing it. At the same time, we're lucky Tom Lynch didn't go 200 because he was killing it as well. It was a very weird matchup on both of them, but they both really dominated the game.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's move on to rookies because today I think we're
Lads,
just going to break it
should
down.
I live on stream just order a nice little drink up here, or what's that about? Room service?
Yeah, until they knock on the door and oh yes. I'm just gonna crack open a KG Crush here while I am. Let's go. Basically today we're gonna break it down and go rookies because just a couple that we need to touch on which way you're gonna go. And then basically it becomes down to the we've already touched on Cornelio, but it's like, well, where would you go? So those round 12 buy plays, I think it's very relevant whether you try and move now and hit and hope, whether you kind of just hold the fort a little bit so that way you wait for those changes to come in and then move. And the other one is obviously looking at Steele and looking at replacements for him. Heavily owned player, I think it was like 35% or around that about. So there are a lot of people that are looking to get off and also get off Steele. So there you go, double on top. Right.
I love it.
Okay, so looking at Greg Clark is 117,000. He went, I think it was about a 60 or just on one gone here. He's
62,
predicted. Yeah, so he is predicted to make 62 this week, averaging 83, predicted to go up 80,000, which means he is extremely relevant. Trouble that I've had with some people is, where they have Steele and they have another issue that kind of needs to fit. And the issue is that with, these defender players, you kind of might not have a loophole, or you might not have a dual position player to be able to sort of swing in to kind of make it work. How much are you kind of throwing the baby out of the bathwater to make sure you get Greg Clark this week, boys?
Do you want to go, or do you want me to go, Chris?
You go, mate.
Okay. It's the first trade I did this week when once Supercoach opened. It was it's just a matter of who goes, because I've still got Ward, McDonald sitting there. It really doesn't matter what rookie. It's kind of, I think it's whatever suits your buy structure best, and that. But it could be Rosas. Does not matter. It's have a look at your buy structure. I think what's going to help me. Clark's going to most likely play through the buys. But yeah, he's just a lock, and it's just a decision of who goes out, and it's not a question of bringing him in or not.
Yeah, I completely agree. However, if most, and I assume most people who listen to our podcast listen to my stupid rants on my team structure and on this podcast, in that you should have been playing at some point to get Clark in anyway. So it's clear from day one that Clark was going to be a rookie that everyone was going to look at. So your trades from last week and the week before should have reflected knowing that you're going to be bringing Clark in. So you should have been setting yourself up for this. Whether or
Yeah,
not that meant you held Josh Ward an extra week, or you had to swing. You brought in Rioli last week into the midfield so you can swing him forward and bring Clark in. Whatever else you may do that may have been, you should have already set your team up to have Clark. If you didn't,
yep.
well, then I can understand.
Shame on you.
Well, no, I mean, look, I actually could even consider, because my trades even were thrown a little bit sideways when I traded Cornelio last week. And my first instinct this week was to trade out Matt Rowell and just go, okay, well, there goes my M8. I'm happy playing Clark on field at M8. Now, it's worked out with Steele going down. I haven't had to do that because I've had a bit of a switcheroosies, but I'll still be trying to loophole him from the bench there. So, is he viable on field? That's another question. So a lot of people might have, say, Nick Martin playing there, considering trading him out again. Nick Martin's got the round 12 bye. He needs to go before the bye, unless you somehow have a team that you can manage to keep him for that round 12 bye and to play him through the other buys, which is viable. But I feel like if you do that, you probably lose his cash over that time. He's pretty much peak price now. Even if he hits 85 over the next 3 weeks straight, he goes up like 1K. Like, what's the real point outside of if he's actually on field for you scoring? If you can replace that with Clark, they're probably going to average about the same over the next 3-4 weeks anyway. So I don't think you're losing much in terms of points, but you are losing in terms of cash on field. So yeah, definitely something to consider when you're trading in Clark.
Yep, and I agree, and that's also why it's worth keeping a boost up your sleeve in case you get an injury and it messes up your plans. So if you have no boost and you kind of have Steele and you have other rookies you want to bring in, well, then that's just unfortunate for burning through 5 boosts in the first 9 rounds. Next one is looking at Baku Karmas, boys. Now, here's why I'm intrigued. Now, there is another defender from the Dogs that's kind of Cleary peeking it at the door a little bit here. So it's a lot of people are trying to work out whether they go Baku or whether they kind of wait a little bit for Cleary. And the thing that I quite like about him is that, number one, I'm just stoked that there's a defender rookie there to actually try and free up some cash. If it's not to free up cash and you have, say, a De Koning in your defensive line or you have a McCartan in your defensive line, then you can get rid of, say, a forward that's doing pretty badly and actually move them into your forward line. So I'm looking at doing something like this similarly, where I can then get McCartan into my forward line and play him on field instead of, say, a Martin, because he's good enough to play on field. But then that way, I'm looking for any forward or any defender that comes along to be able to downgrade McCartan, downgrade De Koning after they get through the round 12 round for me. So Baku interests me. He's 127,000. I know he's a forward player and everything like that, but he has stood out as a forward. And their draw coming up, they have Gold Coast this week, and then they play West Coast. So I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe 2 rounds on the bubble, maybe it goes okay, and then next week West Coast hopefully has a better game. Where do you boys sit on Cleary and Baku as far as defender rookies for this week or next? Swizz.
I did like Buku's game, kicked the 3
Is it Buku?
goals.
Sorry.
He had that
Oh,
50
Buku.
free kick against, which who knows why that was paid against him, and then and we've all talked about the 50 this week. So yeah, that was what, a 14-point swing. So he could have very easily scored a 75 this week. And those couple, well, the Suns aren't as a softer kill as they might be, but up in Ballarat, there's always a chance. But the problem with Ballarat, it's always harder to score. So conditions might not be great for him. West Coast definitely the week after could be good, but I have more questions about how the Bulldogs set up that forward line. Like, we know I don't think Josh Bruce is coming back that quickly, but there's
4
still
to 5.
questions. 4 to 5, so that's not too bad for Buku. You've got Jamara waiting the wings. Darcy played his first full game in the VFL, so they do have some options depending on how they go. Now he did look good, but at the same time, I feel like it could be what happens if he has a bad game. Does he drop back out as skillful as he looks? Where sort of clearly, again, it's like he looked good, but then Tim O'Brien was out of the side last week. So what happens when he comes in? And O'Brien obviously is a swingman, so he can play forward and back. So they have some options there, the Dogs. Bevo always likes to play the kids, and we've seen that with Scott McNeil and McComb coming in this year. But yeah, so kind of job security has me a bit worried. But both of them definitely have the potential to, sort of average in that 60 mark. So I'm not completely sold on them just because, the Dogs sort of ins and outs week to week. And how Bevo sort of manages that team sort of keeps me interested. And Tim English as well is another part to that. And how does he fit back in? Do they play him up forward first week? Or do they just throw him straight back in the ruck, even though he's lost, 8 to 10 kilograms because of this illness?
It was 8 to 10. Geez. Touching on O'Brien as well, boys. He's made of glass, which is ironic because O'Brien does glass. So,
Well, that might be your best for the year, Ben. That I
O'Brien.
think that's peak
That was
Ben
good.
right there, mate. Well done.
Oi,
Yeah,
YouTube
well,
people gave me a lot of flack. Chris, don't
I was-
encourage Ben with his shit takes.
It's true.
Yeah, Chris.
Obviously, O'Brien's been playing mainly defense, so I don't think that too much is going to impact him. But what I also don't like is his draw. And given that he's only really got 4 to 5 weeks to do that, just have a think. So after Gold Coast this week, he plays West Coast, where he'll probably get a pretty tough matchup. Now, unfortunately, West Coast, obviously, there are easy beats. However, the tall defender's actually pretty good. So he's going to be playing on probably McGovern, who probably takes him. One of the better defenders in the league. Barras, obviously, one of the better defenders. Their actual tall defenders are quite good. That's not where they get beaten on the ground. So I actually don't like that matchup. Yeah, and then you've got Witherden as well, the GOAT. Then you've got Geelong the week after. Obviously, that's not a great matchup, even though he'll probably be taken by SDK, who's actually been playing very, very well. The week after, they've got the Giants, so it's sort of a 50-50 game there, but then they play Hawks with Sicily and then the Lions. So even the games that he's actually going to be playing in, they're not the greatest games for key forwards. So I don't hate it because I actually really like him as a player, and he's shown a lot of grit and determination. He's really good. I think his ability to get the ball at the highest point is really, really good. And I think he can go places, but he's still going to be very reliant on goals for scoring. And we've already seen that in his 2 weeks. I mean, you are right. He had that 50 against and the free kick against. I don't think I'm on the opinion that I'm going to wait for Cleary. I think he's the better option. Not the problem with obviously Cleary is, what's his short-term job security like? What's his long-term job security like? I think if he plays well, he stays in the team. But on the flip side, you've also got Rory Thompson that's on the bubble this week. And then you have who's the other 2 defenders that were also named?
Thompson.
Kemp.
You mean
How did Kemp go this
Declan
week?
Mountford can't, even though he played because he's a supplement player. So
No, definitely not.
take him out of it.
Rory Thompson would be one for later.
Yeah, so there's also another 1-game rookie.
I think it was Angus Dewar, but wasn't he a supplement player as well? Brody Kemp.
Yeah, so Kemp obviously played.
Yeah, and
How did
the
he go
good
for
one
sport
about
wise?
Kemp is Zach Williams is out to 6 to 8. So that
Yes.
does free up
So
another.
there's a spot there. It'll be interesting to see what they do in that back line there. I'm a little bit worried as a Doherty owner because obviously Sard and Williams, taking turns in lockdown. I really hope that doesn't mean that now that rotation goes to Doherty. That would be really shitty. But yeah, not really interested in that. So please, if you're listening, Michael Voss, please keep Doherty just destroying the ball and loving stuff. So, but yeah, look, it's not the worst this case, and it doesn't really. One of the benefits is it doesn't really change your buy structure from the guys who are trading out because you're probably trading out either a McCartan or an SDK or someone similar like that. There is an option there where you're trading out Dacos, but also something similar. I don't love the Dacos trade out because again, he actually will carry you through those two buys at this point. You may as well hold him. So yeah, who are you going from? Who are you going to? Some people still have Gipkus. He's obviously got the round 12 buy, so it benefits you to go into that round 13 buy. Um, how many rounds is it between now and so he gets what, three price
2.
rises before
Oh,
two price
3
rises?
for so
3
he
for
would be
Buku.
after round 10, so after round 10, after round 11, after round 12, he'd get 3.
Yeah, so given his scoring profile, he may go up 70K in that time. Let's call it. So even if he gets dropped on the way back, you've made a little bit of cash.
You're talking
Uh,
about Buku, mate.
Buku.
He
Now,
he's relying. Yeah, he's relying on goals, but you know why it's good though, Chris? It's because Buku can't miss. He won't miss those goals, mate.
I don't get it. Is that supposed to be a pun that I'm
Yeah,
not
I
supposed to get?
completely
Or
missed that one, Benny boy.
He's reliant on goals. He can't
can't
miss.
miss.
He can't
I
miss.
I got it. I
Man, you
got it.
guys,
Sorry, you had
Oh
to explain
wow,
what.
lowbrow,
No,
mate, you
lowbrow. You know what? I'm
Benny, you were
retiring.
here.
That's it.
You were
I should have
here.
retired. I should have retired. That's it.
And the
My
one thing we
O'Brien
have to
joke's
highlight.
now. My O'Brien joke's now cooked, boys. Um,
So
can
before
we?
we
So
move on from
Thompson, do you
Buku,
think?
hold on.
Yep.
He will not get forward status. So that's been a rumor going around that he will. He will not because he doesn't meet the game's threshold. So you have to play 6 games to be eligible, and he will only hit 5 by the cutoff. So he will not be eligible for that forward DPP. So anyone who thinks that is or telling you that is the case, it is incorrect. It is not true. Okay. So just be wary that he will be defender only for the foreseeable future. If he gets to, I think there's another one, what, at round 18 or whatever. If he gets to that, then he'll
Yeah,
probably
cool.
qualify for that. And I assume
Yeah,
it cutoff will
if he
probably be
lasts
two
around
games.
18 in your side, then yeah, good. Write that down.
Great on you.
Yes, whereas there are some players that will make that threshold. So you're looking at Hobbs and a few others should get that forward sort of status, which is
Yes.
something to note, particularly later on and moving forward there. Now, boys, Rory Thompson, is he worth a shake or not really?
No, he had the exact same stats line as Buddy Morris Rioli. Scored 44 points more than him. That was actually he had one more touch. That must have been a really good possession by Rory Thompson. Now, obviously, he took some
Probably an intercept
spoils and there's
mark.
probably an intercept mark in there, but he is your genuine key defender who punches. That I don't want anything to do with Rory Thompson.
Don't even get me started on Rioli's Fizz. How dare you compare the great Rory Thompson with someone who got 7 Supercoach or whatever it is? Horrible.
Same stats
Mate,
as
I
Rory Thompson,
cannot.
mate.
Oh, I cannot.
You mean
Literally,
Richard
Rioli
Chamberlain?
can get out of my side this week. Literally, by structure, be damned. I reckon keeping bloody Roses in my team and just punting Rioli one in, one out. I'm not even kidding. Anyway, I think that's it for rookies, boys. Next week, anything on the horizon?
Um,
Stevens was sub, so he's out.
I
Yeah, we
actually
knew
am
that
not
was
looking
going
to
to happen.
trade next week, if I'm honest.
Not looking to trade.
Nah, I will be. I'll try. It depends on English, really. And if English is named as sole ruck and Martin's not in the team and Sweet's not in the team, I will look at bringing him in next week. If he's named with a ruck partner, I'll give it a week. So
That's interesting with English though. He dropping that much weight because I know a guy as well who had to work so hard to put on weight because he was ectomorph. Like when you look at English and he was drafted, he was so skinny, so light that it's taken him a while to put on weight. And when you're naturally that body type, if you get ill, you drop kilos extremely quickly. So it's not really a surprise that he has actually dropped weight, and it takes you, it might take him a few weeks to get on the meatloaf eat the
Yeah.
food, hit some weights, get out to training. That's crazy. That's just crazy how he can just drop that weight, big boy.
And his break
So
even means you probably don't need to bring him in that week. But I suppose I'm looking at it like this. The way that I've traded now, I've only really got two rookies on field. One of them is going to be Patrick McCartan. So my plan is going to be he's now in the forward line. I can swing him with SDK and I can trade either Dacos, McCartan, or SDK next week, one of them. Now, if one of them pumps out a poor score, that gives me the ability to pump one of them to what's his name? Luke Cleary. So I've got the ability to do that, and then I'll have English on field in the forward line, and then I've only got Sam Hayes as my only on field rookie. So it suits my team better to have him long term, and I've also got the ability to make that call next week. So I probably will make that call, just because it suits. I mean, the other thing is the only other forward line players that I would like in my team are probably going to get the DPP additions come round 13, or round 12, and I can't bring them into my forward line right now. So it doesn't really make sense for me to pull the trigger on those guys just yet, just because of my team structure. And something that you were looking at, Swizz, and I know we probably want to touch on this, is this is probably a good segue actually, is for Steele replacements. Are you looking at bringing in something like a Smith or a Bont into the midfield with the hope that they move forward? Are you looking at doing that now and maybe this week, as opposed to holding off and waiting for the announcement in a couple of weeks, which is fraught with a little bit of danger, but I mean, realistically, they're both not scoring terribly anyway, so it's not the worst thing that can happen if they just stay mid. So, so that's my structure and why I'm looking at doing that. Clear is the one for me for next week. I think is really the only one that I'm looking at. He also, again, he doesn't change my buy structure in terms of how many I've got on field, because I'm trading like for buy round. So it just fits my team and my structure, and that's why I'm looking at doing that. Buku also does that, by the way, but it's more it buys me an extra week. I get Clark this week anyway. I don't need to bring two rookies in. I am boosting because I got to get rid of Steele, so I'm going one down, two up, or one sideways, I guess.
It's interesting. We keep talking about buy structure, where everyone's going, what the hell is this buy structure? But this time of year, it is extremely critical to then work out where your liabilities are, particularly for overall. If you're playing for league, then hey, load up, mate. Have a look at your opponents. If you're not sure, well, yeah, but have a look at your opponents and have a look at who you are playing over those 3 rounds, and work out what their structure looks like at this current point in time, and work out if if it looks like you're going to lose that first round, then cool, load up anyway, because you're already losing that round. So start loading up on those buy round players. That's what usually I would do in a league situation. As you kind of go through round 6, 7, and 8, I'm looking at the opposition going, okay, well, how are my buy structures looking up as far as the opponents I'm playing? And then all my upgrades are literally shifted towards one, so I can then win 2 out of my 3 buys. And then that way you move forward out of it. So it is an extremely relevant situation, particularly for overall, because if you are top heavy and you're trying to work it out on the fly, you're like, oh crap, I don't have 18. And then you're trying to chase like something that's already gone. And then by the time you come out of the buys, which is what I think most of us usually rely on, we go, right, what's our rank? Here's the buy rounds. And we're looking to push forward and actually accelerate to come out of the buys further ahead. And if you're not coming out of the buys further ahead, then if you're going for overall, you are doing it wrong.
Yep.
You want to plan to be ahead.
Yep, for sure.
Right now, it looks like I'll actually have 18 premiums on field in round 14, which is insane.
Yes, you're kind of fucked.
18 premiums on field. Like literally
for round 14.
Yeah. That's how I'm structured.
Mate, I hate you. You're probably going to overtake me soon. I don't like it.
And we've seen in the past, like, unfortunately, like, I think last year or the year before, we were hit with a whole lot of fucking rookies during the buy rounds, and a lot of us couldn't field 18. So got to take that into account. Looking at kind of your rookies, like McDonald and Ward, they both sort of had their rest. So if they kind of get named this week, better chance that they might play some, but they're always a chance of getting dropped. And as you said, the difference between head-to-head and league, shout out to a guy that I'm working with at the moment, Richard, and that he was having a look at that same thing today and having a look at his buy matchups. Unfortunately, each week his opponent has loaded up on that week, so he's he's already looking at 0-3 through the buys, I think. So there's some brutal
bad luck.
things, but yeah, you in a perfect world, if you're a head-to-head player, just playing for your leagues, you want to come out 2-1 during the buys.
Speaking of Ward, I'm pretty sure Ward got knocked out. He's out for a week or two, boys. So
He had
if you've
7
been holding
touches and then pretty much didn't touch the ball the second half.
Hawks, Josh Ward concussion, 1 to 2 weeks as of today. So that's on the
Unlucky.
AFL.
Let's hope he comes back.
He's gone to Clark anyway, so it's all good.
Oh wow. Okay. Anyway, okay, having a look at that. So that does tie in with the looking at so at the moment it looks as though that Bailey Smith 37% forward, Bontempelli 37% forward, Max Gorn's only like 27%, so do not rely on that
No
at
chance.
all. No chance at all. Hobbs, I think will get forward status, which is good. Is there any other major movers? Nah. And Cameron as well, ruck status with his forward status. So if you got on him, Chris will probably be looking to move him into that ruck line to get rid of his dodgy ass ruck that keeps scraping him by. So it is an interesting question because for me, right, Western Bulldogs also play West Coast next week. So Bontempelli, yeah, maybe he'll probably just stay playing forward anyway against West Coast. Bailey Smith is the interesting one. Really high ceiling. He has a low break even as well because of his 140 that he just got. So the dilemma is that, okay, well, if you have Steele, right, you could go with Smith. He probably goes okay against the Suns. He probably goes really well against West Coast as that outside running kind of player that's hard to shut down anyway. And then he might actually jump up to 575, 580, 50,000 more than what he is now. So I can kind of see the appeal of jumping early, right? And that kind of ties in with the, there's the Cornelio situation, there's the Martin situation. Is it worth it to you? So Swizz will go with you as well. Is it worth taking that risk to bring in a Smith if he's not going to get DPP? If something happens, right, how upset are you if you go early?
Well, I'm looking at bringing in Bailey Smith, but not for Steele. This is part of my Cornelio trade. And so for directly, if you were thinking Steele to Bailey Smith, I would say no. But if you are trying to look at, like if you've got like me, a loophole that you want to put back in the forward line, and I'm bringing Bailey Smith in as my M8, then I think it's worth the risk because it looks like, unless, Bevo goes full Bevo and just plays him in the midfield all this week and that, which is always a big chance. But I think Bailey Smith, what's he, 17th overall at the moment, got the ability against West Coast and the Suns to go big again. So he could push himself up that an extra 1 or 2 average points and be knocking on the top 10 anyway. So I think it's one of those calculated risks to go, well, I'm hoping that he gets the forward status, but as a midfielder anyway, he's not that far behind the others, and that sort of top 10, and he could push the top 10 if the Bulldogs get on a run, because we know they've struggled early in the year, and on any given day he can pump out a 130 or 140. So yeah, I think if you're kind of looking at Cornelio, or maybe you've got somebody else that you can upgrade as your M8, I don't mind it. But for Jack Steele, I'd be going for a uber premium to an uber premium.
Yeah, I agree with that. I actually really like Smith though this week. I would probably pull that trigger if it's so tough. My team, I don't have any availability at all for any round 13 midfield premium because I already have Laird. So I've already got Laird, Took, McRae. So there's 3. I also am running Rowell at the moment, but Rowell is the one that I'm going to be trading out in round 13 likely. So to a round 12 premium. So that balances. If I bring in Bailey Smith, I'm bringing him in to keep, which gives me actually an extra premium that week. Yes, I can move him forward. For what purpose that week? That week I'm going to be moving him forward to be with English and Parker and Dunkley that I already have in the forward line. It just completely screws up my buy structure, and so I can't bring in I can't bring in him. I can't bring in Bont. I can't bring in who's another round 14 buy player that's in there.
Heaney's also in the mix as well as
Yeah,
Liberatore and
I can't bring
Trelaw
any.
and
I can't bring in Dawson. I can't bring in Stewart. Like these are guys that I'm looking at in round 14 to bring in, but I cannot bring them in now. I'm maxed for round. That's my tough buy. And so I think that a lot of teams will have already a substantial amount of these buy players. And bringing another one in now, that's the toughest thing. If you can do it though, I personally think that Bailey Smith is probably the best value upgrade target right now across the entire park. Like he's 520k, low break even. He's got some easy kills coming up. We know that he can rack the ball up. That's not the issue. It's just his really disposal. I love it. I love the fact that he's also got a pretty decent chance of also going into a DPP forward situation where he could potentially be a top 3 forward. Like it's just it's a great trade. You're not going to get another value trading like that. But you're basically getting like a Patrick Cripps style value pick for the forward line. But again, if it doesn't happen, something happens, he plays midfield, 2 weeks in a row, there's no chance of him getting that. So there is a risk involved. I'm not saying there's not, but I really like the Bailey Smith option moving forward. Whether or not that's an upgrade that you're doing, or whether or not it's a Jack Steele trade as a conversion, either way, if it doesn't affect your buy structure, I really like Bailey Smith pick.
Yep. Also, after the game, they spoke to him like, "Hey, like, how do you, with all the midfielders in the Dogs team, like, how do you guys figure out who's in the stoppage, etc.?" And he said basically he's tag teaming with another player, so they'll, one will go in, then the other one will go in, and they just keep sort of tag teaming, which does help because that's their role. They already know what their role is. They already know who they're switching with in that midfield, and they pretty much just go like for like. So I think I'm not sure who he's switching
I
with. Maybe
think
it's
it may
Libba
have
or
been Treloar on Friday night,
oh, maybe it was.
but it,
Yeah.
it does alternate per game. But it did seem like Treloar was going in there more than what Smith was. But when, Treloar obviously usually spends a little bit of time on the bench and then he goes forward and that. So I think that was the game. But then we've seen in previous weeks where it's Dunkley or it's Libba. So yeah, it could be easily very different this week. But I'm kind of still thinking I could back Smith to probably spend a bit more time forward. I kind of guess it depends on the ins and outs as well, and who
Yeah.
sort of comes into that mix. Like if English was to come in this week and they keep Sweet and English plays more forward, does that knock? Like, is that another restructure they do? The Bulldogs are always up in the air every week with their selections because they've had a few injuries. They're in and outs each week, and because they've got so many midfielders, it's like Bevo matchup dependent or sort of how he feels. Or last week it was Collingwood, so Treloar was up and about for that game, so Treloar spent more time in it. The Bombers, Dunkley seems to get up and play really well against them. So yeah, I think it's a bit matchup dependent.
We're also one injury away from Bont being the number one and averaging forward, right? So if one midfield injury, they'll throw Bont in there full time, and then it's game over. You have to get Bont as soon as possible. So keep an eye on that because that could change it and flip at any point in time. And Bont's the sort of guy that, I mean, even now he's averaging still not too bad considering his price has barely dropped. I think he's still 570 something. So it's not like
Yeah.
it's not like he's a real cheap forward option. But even if that role flips and he starts playing permanent mid time, you're gonna need to jump on him that week because he'll just shoot straight up. So just keep an eye on Bont. Bont's the one that I'm saying if they're going to be if the price by the time that buy rolls around is going to be the same, I'm picking Bont over Bailey Smith just for obviously history and upside. Like yeah, obviously Bailey Smith's got current upside, but we know that Bont can go on a stretch of 10 games where he averages 130 plus. And I just can't see that from Bailey Smith, even with his upside. So, yeah, someone that I would definitely look to bring in at a priority in that round 14.
Yeah, I think as you were saying, matchup dependent. I feel like Bont goes better this week. It's the Suns, Ballarat, kind of how the conditions will be. The following week, but Bailey Smith, I think that game's in Perth. So the wider wings, West Coast aren't going to have any midfield that's going to be able to go with Smith. I feel like that's another 140, 150 for him. So at his price, naturally that better break even, the cheaper price, Bont's not going to hurt us as much right now. Saying that Bont's got the ability to come out and smash a 150, 160, but I don't feel like Bont's going to hurt us as much right now compared to Bailey Smith. If he was to go 140 again this week, already you're missing 30, 40K and then you're in that trouble where you're like, oh god, he's got his bye now in a couple of weeks, so I'd be jumping on the next week, and so I kind of prefer going early on him and waiting for Bont to have his bye.
That's the worst case scenario, isn't it? Really, where he goes well this week, and he's probably going to tear up on the outside next week, and then he's still got one more round before the buy, and before you know it, he's 580,000, and you're like, where did this come from? You know what I mean? It's are you paying 600 for a guy that was just 520? It's just anarchy. So, very interesting there. And that kind of moves into the other dilemma at the moment, boys, where with Steele, and at the moment, the stats are kind of saying that people are split as far as the premiums that they're going through. So I think what we'll do is we'll go with, talk about the heavily traded in targets for Steele as far as Supercoach currently, and then even rate maybe our top 3 players that if you had Steele, who would you be kind of looking at? And we'll assume that most people kind of have, say, Cripps and McRae and Neil, but we'll look for a few of those other outside the box options, people under sort of 30% or something to look at. So at this current point in time, when we have a look at
Well,
um,
there's two dominating the percentages.
yeah, so when we have a look at, say, coach's choice, ownership, and rounds changed. So outside of the rookies, Petrarca is the
It's
most
actually
brought in
3.
player this week in general,
Yep.
3.3% as far as a premium. Rory Laird is 3.2%. So he was only
Nah, I don't want to talk about him, guys.
1.65.
Yeah,
Don't
Letty.
even don't bother about him.
One
What a shit cunt.
he is 1 point he was 1.6, he was 1.6% owned, and now he's 3.2% jumping on him this week. So in my
1.5%
opinion,
is just
that
my big head.
yeah. I was gonna say 1.5% to go with your 1.5 inch. 3.2% bringing in lead this week. Mills is 3%, so fairly evenly distributed. Some people going early on the faith train on Dustin Mutton, 2.6%. Took 1.8. Sicily 1.8. So there you go, Chris. You're up there with that. Brayshaw 1.4. Not too many people have traded out Steele as of yet. I think they're going to wait. But for me, boys, Laird has to be number 1. Callum Mills is number 2, more because of price point and his high break even. And then I'm probably looking a little bit more outside the box. I don't mind Petrarca, but I think he's already had his a bit of a bunny game there. North Melbourne this week will be good for him as well. Then I'm starting to look at probably your Sam Walsh's, and whether if I'm gonna hold off for a Zach Merritt / Parrish. Where do you sit, Swizz? And then we'll
So
go to Chris.
Yeah, so I've had a few questions already about this, asking me about, do you go Parrish? Do you wait for Merritt? Do you jump on Brayshaw now? He's at 550. So they're all options. Mills, like I said, the percentage there, 3%. Haven't had many questions about him so far. And I think the 670 is scaring people. But obviously his form's been fantastic. Does have the Blues this week, which probably is scaring people off a little bit more. And I know the Swannies have the D's in 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah, that's more of a, I can see why people are leaving that alone. Laird, he's fixture, and I know Chris doesn't want us to talk about it because he's jumped on him and that and wants him with the pod. But it's like he's got the Saints and the Cats this week, so yeah, I still think he can score decent against them. He's been scoring for fun anyway. He did score a 132 against the Saints last year. He scored 120 against the Cats in the past, but it's his round 12, then the bye, and then he's 10 games after that, which is why Laird's getting a lot of attention. So he's still going to play the Eagles and North twice, and then he's got the Suns, North, Hawthorn, and Collingwood in that. It's as easy of a draw as you can get, and I'd go as far as not just as in a footy sense. Say Adelaide versus St Kilda is a mini final this week. The Saints have a very tough draw coming on the run home, and they obviously missing their captain and best player Steele. Where the Crows, if they were to win this week and that fixture, like they're going to beat the Eagles and North both times. That's a given. If they were able to beat Hawthorn, Collingwood, and the Suns in that run home, all of a sudden they're actually in the contention for the 8 and that. So I think it's a big game this week. So if Lead can keep going that form and be a match winner in that match, they could be onto something, and I think that'll even help his scoring because we already talk about the percentage of the pie, and they're going to get a lot of pie in those games. And then if they're in contention, It's not going to be like the normal resting that some of these lower teams do. So, Laird's the number one for me. If you don't have track, I think you've got to get on track as well. He just showed what he did again against West Coast. He's gone 131 and 136 in the last 3 weeks. North Melbourne this week as well. Like, it depends if Melbourne kind of want to rock up at 3/4 time and still win the game, they probably could. But I think Petrarca, he could run around at 45% this week and still rock up 120. So they've still got some friendly games. They do have a harder draw on the run home, but I don't think that's going to phase track. So I'd put track in there at 2. Took, if you don't have Took, I'd be looking at him. The 122, the 130, the 160 before that. So his 3-game average is through the roof. What's he averaging? 137 over the last 3 games. So we talked about, all of us were really keen on starting Took last year. Inside ball magnet. The Suns are up and about. They've got a couple of really soft games after the Bulldogs with the Hawks and North, and I think they're both in Darwin. So they'll be slippery conditions, perfect for Took because the ball will be on the ground. He'll be laying tackles, contested footy. So that's probably my third option in there. So I think it's as simple as Laird, Track, or Miller. I had questions about wines. I get the price, but I don't really understand it when something like Brayshaw is only 15,000 more, and then just go up. Petrarca is like an extra 30k. So if you don't have track, just go get him. I can understand the Jack Sinclair talk if you need a defender and kind of who's going to take those points. So I don't mind that he comes into play. I like Dawson or someone like that if you want to kind of. If you've already got sort of 7 or 8 midfielders, you might want to fix up one of your other lines. So I can understand that. Josh Kelly's come up because as much as us boys don't always have a bit of a discussion about Kelly, but
No, I'm going to interrupt you there, Swizz. We're not talking about Josh fucking Kelly.
We are, mate.
Now,
he's gone. He's gone 153 and 156 2 out of the last 3 weeks.
You're coming up talking about defenders here. What's your 1, 2, 3 for midfield?
So I've given you my 1, 2, 3. It is Laird, Track, and Miller. And
no Josh Kelly. Josh Kelly's out of this conversation.
No, mate, Josh Kelly should be in that conversation.
Then we move on and you give Chris his
turn.
Mate,
I'll give Chris. And I'm just going to throw up one last name just because it's been brought up to me and I fucking I can't believe it. And I just want to mention it because Chris is not going to mention it. Brad Crouch. But
mate, where's the mute button? We need to mute this guy. Tom Lynch. Tom
but
Lynch.
In all seriousness,
hey, Chris, you know what I just realised? Swizz has become, since he's come out and talk about Tom Lynch as the best cash cow and Steele, not Steele, bloody Crouch. Swizz is the Bomps of Supercoach Insider.
Mate, I can't, mate. I'm not recommending them. These are the questions that were received. Did you even see in the A-League chat they were talking about bloody Brad Crouch? That's so.
Oh, you mean the chat in which we are the number 1 ranked league? Is that the one?
Yes, we are the number 1 league. Does
everyone know that, by the way?
Yeah. And it's been talked about in the number 1 league. So we need to address.
Oh.
Yeah.
Shameless plug.
No, anyway. We need to plug it.
So
you go, Chris. Yeah, we are they're my 3, mate. They're my 3.
In Supercoach.
Thank you for holding, Chris. Right. Swizz has now given you your turn. You have your time to shine.
It's all right. I'm in a hotel, so I heard the elevator music. So look, the first thing I will say is that I think Swizz is pretty much on the money with a lot of what he said. I disagree with one of the picks, but I will get there. The problem is most of the good picks are all round. Again, I hate to harp on about it. I feel like I'm a broken record. They're all round 13 guys, right? So
13.
If you can bring them in. Now, the thing with Steele going down is a lot of people who had him were already planning him around the fact that they had a round 12 guy. So trading that completely changed your buy structure this late in the piece, it may not be viable. So a lot of people therefore are looking for either a round 12 to do a direct replace, or looking to try and backload and to get the round 14 guys. Now, unfortunately, there's only 2 options in the round 14 mostly, and it's either Petrarca or Brayshaw. both of which have their own issues
If you
individually.
round 12, as in
Um,
Kelly and Crouch.
Yeah. I was going to talk about Kelly, but not that other douchebag that you so speak of. So
Yeah, let's talk about Kelly.
look,
Go, Chris.
let's be honest and say that Brayshaw and Petraka are probably fighting for that sort of 8 to 10 range. Are they your best picks? No. I personally think that Brayshaw has had his peak and he's heading back down. He's going to be averaging somewhere between 110 to 115 for the year. So I don't think that he's a viable long-term option. Um, Track, I think, is a decent option, which is what I commended you on there. But if I'm looking at who I'm bringing to my team, I've got the option of Track. I'm looking somewhere different. His name is Sammy Walsh, and you heard it here first. 4% of teams, and there's a few reasons why. But I was waiting on Walsh. Obviously, he missed was it the first round of the season? What injury he have or something? I don't know. He missed the first something of the season.
Syndesmosis.
Yeah.
He missed the first few rounds.
Right. So what we want to see him run, he's been running. He's running all over the park. We also saw the first real game with all those Carlton midfielders in it, and he killed them all. He got 149. Yes, he's playing a little bit outside, but it's not really affecting his scoring. And if you have a look at his scoring this year, it's actually quite ridiculous. So, Briss bringing it up on the screen here. So after round one, when he went in 90, so everyone wrote him off. But his lowest, he's had two scores under 100, an 89 and a 90. And outside that's 124, 101, 128, 106, 129, 149. Like he's just classic Sam Walsh, right? He just knows how to get the football. Now, if you look to what's his upcoming fixture, it's a joke. So he's got Sydney, his high, like if you have a look at his high scores against all these teams. Now remember, this is a guy that's played 69 games of AFL football. And his lowest score, he's only got one score that's a low high score, under 122, and that's against Melbourne, which he doesn't play until round 22. Everything else is 122 or above. His next three games, his highest score against Sydney was 161. Collingwood, which he plays twice, he got his big 193 last year. He's then got Essendon and Richmond, and then Freo. It's a free run. Then he's got Saints and West Coast. So the harder games don't come until he plays Geelong in round 18, and then Brisbane and Melbourne back to back in 21 and 22. So Sam Walsh to me is a fantastic pick, and he's also got that round 12. So if you want like for like buy wise, I personally think he's the best pick. In terms of the others available on that buy, the others is Darcy Parish, who's not a terrible option, but I'm also looking to trade into him. So he's a little bit more expensive, but I'm looking to trade into him from Rowell in round 13. And the other one is Josh Kelly. Now, Josh Kelly, mate, take a straw poll and just see what happens. Honestly, he gets a 150 this week and it's fantastic. What happens to his role moving forward? It's a huge question mark. And unfortunately, I just don't have enough data or faith in the pick to be like, yep, that's the guy. But he's obviously 20k cheaper. So if you trust in Josh Kelly over Sam Walsh, then go for it. But yeah, me personally, I feel like there's not really much better that you can do than Sam Walsh at what's I think he's just flat 600k. So a little bit more of a premium than something like a Track, but you get that consistency. And you've got a huge upside from a guy, again, who's only played 69 games of football, and he's a Supercoach jet. So I'm jumping on the Walsh train, and I'll see you at Fuck You Station in 3 weeks when everyone's going, oh, I've got to get Sam Walsh on the round 13 bye. Guarantee you that's what's going to happen.
Hey, Chris, who averages more for the rest of the year, Sam Walsh or Paddy Cripps?
Ooh,
Just to revisit
well, I mean,
last year.
based on the new ruck roll of Patrick Cripps, Sammy Walsh.
Yeah, right.
No, honestly,
I want to touch on
that is a
one
valid
more
question.
time, just because
It's a
I know
valid
you
question
hate it.
because
Now I'm a non-owner, right? As in, I don't have Steele. He was someone I was looking at around the buy anyway. It kind of ties in because I have Rowell still, so that way I'm probably looking at a Merritt or a Walsh if I can for Rowell on that buy round. Now, the reason I like lead, if you are a non-owner, if you have an upgrade possibility this week, I'm looking at bringing in lead because I honestly believe out of all of the players there, based on price point, based on scoring and low ownership, I think Lead will probably be the heaviest mover premium this week. So I don't own him. I don't own Steele, but I'm actually looking to upgrade and take Nod and make a pretty big move and pay up heavily to bring Lead into my side because I feel as though a lot of other teams around that top sort of 5,000, etc., are trying to bring Steele to Lead this week. And I don't have an injury this week, so I'm looking at sort of matching that premium or also being one of those ones that jumps on him at a low percentage. So that's why I'm advocating is I am trying to move heaven and earth to pay up for lead this week and
Copycat.
use a boost to get lead because I am currently not in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Why
well,
don't you
mate,
pick your own
he's been
pods, bro?
extremely good and durable.
Get your
He's
potty.
Pick your own pod.
no, hey, there's been more data since when you picked him.
You
When
and
you
your
grabbed
Ben
him,
of
I
the
was like, oh,
Supercoach
okay, a little bit
Insiders, all right?
speculative, and he's just been extremely consistent. What he's got a low of 116 since when he came in. So round 3 after that, he's been just banging on. Mate, he's just
Yeah,
been
when I
banging
got him,
on, and
to be
he's someone
honest.
that just keeps racking up the ball. Even against Brisbane, he just racked up. Can't stop him. Literally
Oh,
cannot
look,
stop him.
look, I
Durable,
will talk
consistent.
about him. I mean, have you seen him dispose? He's the only one in that midfield that knows how to dispose the football properly. Like they cannot hit a target forward or center. Laird gets the ball and he hits it on the tit every single time. And honestly, those forwards must look up, see it's Rory Laird, and go, "Oh, at least now I'm going to get the footy." Honestly, it's that bad. Their ball movement moving forward without Rory Laird, it would just be a whitewash. So that's why, one thing I've noticed with Laird more than in previous years, his exiting from the contest and delivery. He a lot of the time he used to just hack kick forward from midfield, and he looks like he's worked on his craft to be that explosive leaving the pack. He's also getting a lot more handball receives in midfield than he was. So I don't know if that's something he worked on his game, but one thing I noticed was when he first transitioned to midfield, a lot of his kicks from stoppages would be just hack kicks. And he's worked on getting the time and space outside to make sure he cleans up the disposal because we know he's a good kick. A little bit like how Zach Williams transitioned, like when he went into that midfield role, all of a sudden he forgot how to kick. It wasn't that, it was just he's under pressure and he thought he didn't have the time that he did. And Rory Laird's worked out, he can exit the stoppage and he can get a clean disposal, and it's really impacting himself moving forward. So that's why I think that combined with Sloan obviously out, Crouch as well, I do think that he's going to be their number one scorer at the very least, but his disposal count is going to keep going up. So yeah, very good pick. I'm a little bit butthurt that this Steele injury happened, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh well, we'll just go to Rory Laird. But well, I can't have them forever, mate.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
not a pod for the
it's
whole
gonna be an
season.
easy decision for people. Well, it's
Yeah,
going to be an easy decision for people because he's only about 40,000 more. Speaking of that hat kick forward, I also call that the Jared Berry. I could not be more disappointed in
yeah, right.
Jared Berry this year because he went from, and we've spoken about it, he went from dump kicks, like as in I'm so rushed, I'm just going to kick it to nobody, and it's
Jack
horrible.
Crisp.
And
Yeah,
then he went through a phase of I'm just going to hold on to the ball. I'm just going to hold on to the ball and wait for every option to pass up. And and the worst part is shout out to Liam Clark as well, talking about the whole everyone's been focused on Dane Zorko and how Coleman comes into the back line and how now Zorko's playing midfield. But what it's also done is it's also like fucked up Berry's role. Berry's not really getting inside as
yeah,
much
yeah.
into that midfield anymore because Zorko's in there. And Berry's also out of form. He's doing the team thing, but he's not actually dominating to the point where he had such a bad first half. They're like, oh, well, Dawson's playing free, so let's just send him to Dawson and try and shut him down. And his scoring was absolutely horrible. So if you're not off
That's true.
him yet, if you're not off Berry yet, I suggest you get off him now because his role is not the same. It's not to like, oh, he's playing midfield and wait for those 80s to come back again. He is literally now taking it for the team, and Zorko has kicked him out. So get off him.
Yeah, and just
That's it. That's my
on
spray.
that, guys, I think we should probably touch on should you just trade Max Gawn out this week? I mean, Sam Hayes is still there at like 250k. You could just go Max Gawn all the way to no takers, none at all. What about if Strindakar was coming
I
back?
hope
You
I hope
could have Max.
Stranaka misses one more week, and then I can trade Hayes for Stranaka and just take Hayes as cash. But
Yeah,
yeah, mate, you're in the perfect world.
I think
The
Hayes will be
perfect
playing
world
from
would be
R3 after
frigging
this week
Gawn
for me.
plays 100% forward. We want
Oh,
Gawn
then
to
we get
play.
him as a
can't wait to
forward.
If
watch
Just
it.
imagine.
you're listening to this, Goody, you are playing North Melbourne. Gawn does not need to leave the forward square. Put him in at the square, play him 100% forward this week, so we can come back to Chris next week and go, unlucky Chris, we've got Gawn as a forward.
Or just
Well,
let
I
Gorn go
think you'd be
another
better off.
180
Well,
points or something.
mate, he'll get 180 playing full
Gorn could
forward
go
this
real
week.
well with Cherry back this week. Nah, well, Cherry's back in the ruck this week
True.
apparently, so it's likely that he probably
Yeah.
scores well just as a ruckman. So
It's
yeah,
more likely
I don't
Gawn
know.
could
Look,
play
Gorn's
full
obviously
forward and kick
again
10.
that's also likely as well.
Mate, it's criminal.
Who knows? It's more
It's
with Gorn.
absolutely
I've noticed
criminal
that his
that
scoring is
Goldstein.
completely. Sorry, with Gorn, it's his role and scoring is completely related 100% to his marking ability. Some nights he's unstoppable. He cannot drop anything. He takes contested mark after contested mark and drops behind, takes contested mark. And other nights it's like butter. And I have no idea. I can't tell you why, but his mark, obviously because of his lack of ruck time, his ability to mark the ball is really how he gets his points these days in the role that he's in now. So on nights when he just doesn't clunk him, he's not scoring. And that's the only thing. He's getting the right position. He's still playing the same role. He could go big. The difference between him going 140 and 80 is about 4 contested marks generally. So yeah, it's
exactly.
unfortunate, but that's what I've noticed with Max Gawn.
It also depends the team they're playing too, because if a team goes around, if a team's trying to go around the structure, do you know what I mean? Then it's going to sort of bypass Gorn a little bit because they're trying to sort of open side and go around. Whereas if teams are sort of dump kicking it down the line or they're under pressure and they're just kicking it out of a contest, then Max Gorn's going to eat it up every day of the week. So realistically, you're looking for crappy teams that don't want to try and switch, and he will probably eat that up alive. So it's going to be an interesting one to
my
watch.
plan, Ben, on that is in 2 weeks I'll put Gawn forward and Patrick Cripps into the ruck.
Sounds good. It solves everyone's problem.
What was Vossi thinking? Just on a footy note, what was Vossi thinking putting their best player and most injury-prone player in the friggin' ruck?
Wasn't it just in the forward one though, or was it all around the ground?
Cripps.
I saw him do a couple contests at half forward, and I'm like, and I was watching.
I think they're trying to do that whole. Yeah, they're trying to get Cripps to be that Tom Hawkins style ruck at the contest in the forward line, so he can try and body up against the other opposition ruckman. But I just don't think that's going to work. Cripps is a big guy, but he's not Tom Hawkins.
I think it was because they didn't have anyone else.
Anyway, there's also that. So this begs the question, guys. With forms, Gawn's drop in form, obviously he's going to be coming back into the fray in a lot of people's teams over the buys. I think you're probably better off to just grab him whenever, but he's no longer the number one ruck, right? I think Witts is overtaking him this season at least. Where do you sit on if you had Bruce, who you probably won't sell as long as he stays in the park? Who are you bringing in?
Well, Chris, you're breaking up. Your Wi-Fi isn't there, Parramatta in general, so it's a little bit.
I think they're coming for you.
A little bit all over the place. Geez, there he is. He's pretty much in the movie Pixels. You're in the movie Pixels, mate. And that's why, as in, this has been a little bit challenging as far as the delay, and obviously Chris using some kind of Bluetooth technology that I'm not quite aware of. Hopefully this sounds much better in the aftermath and all the editing and everything like that. But
his question was, but what would you do? Like, if you don't have Gawn, you can wait for him. Like, his break even's 221. Now, there's a chance he could go massive against North. He's done it before, but I expect him around that sort of. The problem is he's got the last buy, but he's going to drop. He's definitely going to drop some cash, and you might have to pick him up. Well, what's he at the moment? 639. So you could be looking as low as say maybe a 550, depending on how he goes the next couple of weeks. So that's something to think about for non-owners. And then you've got. Like Witts, well done to everybody who started Witts, and fuck, I still regret trading him a minute before the Supercoach season, but yeah, because he's flying as the number one. There's no real other clear ones. Sean Darcy with 51 on the weekend, Riley O'Brien getting dropped. So we're kind of looking at Tim English, see how he comes back, but realistically, for me at the moment, I don't have wits, so Bruce is kind of fine as an R2. Like I'm happy for Bruce to just sit there as R2, and if you've got wits, well, fine, keep wits as your R1, and if you don't have Gorn, well, then consider that as like maybe your last upgrade.
Mate, this is going to be perfect. It's the reverse of last
It
week.
is,
At this point in time, Chris is going to have the
yeah.
wasted across the
I,
screen. So we'll wrap it up here, and we will relay the VCNC options. I think, boys. I think we've been extremely thorough as far as the different scenarios in which that's kind of playing for this week. Now, VC and C for the week. It's going to be an interesting one because, and for once, boys, Carlton actually play nice and early, which is wonderful with this new fixture. So you've got Carlton and Sydney nice and early, so you've got a nice opportunity. If you have a Mills to throw a VC on, or if you have a Cripps, you can throw a VC on quite nicely. Um, then you can also even go McRae and Tuke in sort of the second game of the round, 150 on a Saturday or 145 on a Saturday. Now
More
you've got
importantly,
your
Ben,
Max Gawn and Clary on the Saturday afternoon, and then you've got Neil against the Hawks, who could absolutely pull a Callum Mills and go extremely big. So, what do you think it's with
well,
VC and C this
the
week?
more importantly is the Hawks, who are the ones that seem to be the loopholes, are the ones playing on the Sunday. So it gives us a lot more options. I think a couple of people are carrying some West Coast players in Howell, and then I think I've seen Mitchy Owens pop up still in some teams, and they play Saturday night. So where the last couple of weeks our loophole options have been sort of that first or second game on the Saturday. Yeah, I think a lot of teams are going to have a lot of flexibility this week. So I like in a contested game against the Swans, could go very well, but I'm I'd rather go the fresh kill. I think Oliver Petrarca versus North, or I don't mind the idea of Took up in Ballarat, just because it's probably going to be I don't know if there's actually predicted rain, but just the way games always seem to be played at Ballarat, they seem to be a bit more contested than that. But I still think I will go either Oliver or Petrarca at North, and then back Neil in against the Hawks. I was there watching Mills do it down at Tassie, and I think Neil. Well, we know what Neil can do, so yeah, I think that's the way to go there.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And Neil's generally he goes 115 or more anyway. So I quite like him as a captain option because generally his baseline is quite good. McRae as a C, we've already seen him drop a couple of 90s, so I know McRae can do extremely well. Cripps after his the bad game last week, I expect him to do quite well. I don't think there's anyone at Sydney that can really stop him either. If he's a big sort of contested inside midfielder, I wouldn't mind seeing JPK kind of turn back the clock and sort of play a contested style and try and put a bit of body on Cripps because he's someone that I feel like could not match it with him, but would quite like some of the tough in and under sort of work and putting the heat on. Mills has done it well before with Dangerfield, but I think Cripps is just bigger, taller, stronger, and better at contested balls.
Yeah,
So
Mills. I actually think Hewitt goes straight to him. Played against each other or played with each other for a long time. So Hewitt would probably know Mills better than anyone. So I would not be surprised first bounce. And then you could see possibly Mills trying to free himself up by going to Cripps. So I think that's how it probably plays out. Where we've talked in the past about McRae as a VC option up in Ballarat. He had a really poor score last time they played up there earlier in the year. But before there, I think he averaged about 150, 155 in Ballarat. So yeah, he's the sort of guy that he gets up there for whatever reasons those conditions suit him, and yeah, he could have an absolute field day. But I still like Melbourne versus North Melbourne. I it could be a case where Melbourne kind of went through third and fourth gear for half that game against West Coast and still won by 12 goals. But the fact of the matter is, you're not going to do that every week. Like they've gone to Perth, they had an easy game, they rolled through the motions and still won. This week they come back home, they'll probably want to get up and about, and I could probably see them doing some real damage to North Melbourne and that. Hopefully for the North fans out there, they put up a bit of a fight. But even Gorn, as you said first Cherry, but Petrarca, Oliver, I think you've got to have one of them either as your VC or your captain.
yep, that's pretty much how I'm sitting now. I, unlike some other people, I don't even have a real loophole this week, so I'm actually considering. being a little bit more. Well, it's at the point of the year
Yeah.
where you've got all these awesome premiums that you kind of want a loophole. And I don't have one. I don't have. Well, previously I traded out Mead because they played first, and Port Adelaide kept playing first. So that's sort of shifted now, I think. So I'm actually contemplating doing something a little bit different. Oh, they play second.
Mm.
So I'm thinking about actually trading in a loophole because
Ooh.
I've got that many trades. I've got 20 trades. I've done really well. I had Bruce on my starting field, etc. So I'm actually thinking about trading in a loophole player and then just knowing the fact that that should help buy me. But it's only 2 more weeks. Was it 10, 11, and then 12? So I've got 2 weeks. Do I just, what do you think, Swizz? Do I risk it? And do I get a
I
loophole or
don't
do I
know.
just try
I
and,
don't know. Maybe one of the Suns, if they don't get named in Tispus or Elijah Hollins, they've got to make their debut at some point. They're doing really well in the NEFL. Tyler Swansea from Richmond's another one to look at if he doesn't get named this week. He's been doing really well in the VFL. So if you're bringing in one of those guys, you want somebody who is more than likely to
might
make their
play?
debut in the next few weeks. Which so track some of that NEFL VFL form, not NEFL these days, VFL form. The
Yeah, it's
other
tough, eh?
then the other thing I'll say before we go in that, I think I went for about 50 minutes last week. Sorry for the drag on for my weekly pod, but I had so many questions. It was fantastic. So I might try to limit it to 20 this week, but a lot of the questions are similar, and I try to cover it. So if anybody has any questions, feel free. Supercoach Insider 100 or Swizz 26, and I've been trying to do it on a Thursday night as the teams come out to make it a bit more relevant. And feel free to send me the questions and we'll go through them.
Yep, I agree. And pretty much the best response is go check out our bloody weekly podcast, you inconsiderate prick. And that's the best way to kind of hit them up. So, hey, mate, we've covered it. And I'm not going to spoon feed you. If you don't pay the attention, you don't pay the price, mate. So, are you talking about keeping it to 20 minutes or 20
No, I
questions,
both
mate?
try to keep it to
Because
20 questions and that, but hopefully 20
20
questions. But hopefully
questions,
20 questions will
oh,
mean 20 minutes. About a minute a question.
mate, the way you go on, it's
Oh
like
no,
2 minutes
that's probably
per
why it was
question.
50 minutes last week.
Probably.
No,
Then because you answer the question and then you're like, oh, what a great point. And then
yeah,
you kind of
that's right. Sometimes
elaborate.
you can't help it. There's some good
Anyway, that's
questions
it
out
from
there.
us. Oh, there is very much some good questions. And look, it is a tricky time of year, so I appreciate it. Even the question I put up today on Twitter, mate, there's so many responses to it, which is absolutely crazy. YouTube, again, keeps absolutely popping off and getting more views, more time than the audio platforms at the moment, which is absolutely ridiculous for us as well. And speaking about ridiculous, so we just put out a little thing saying, hey, everyone, like, what do you think about for this week? And there was just so many comments. I can't even comprehend
Yeah,
how many. So what's
and
your what was
Ben,
it? What was your biggest super coach? What's your biggest super coach dilemma this week? 47 comments.
yeah, and on
Ridiculous. I
that, Ben,
appreciate you.
if you're a listener to us, feel free to jump on and comment on other people's questions and that. Like that's what the Supercoach community is about. And between us all, you can get a really good discussion going. That's what we have in our group chats. As we said, not to brag, but our league's number one because we pose these questions, and between us and Supercoach Mama and George and some of the other, but Ben, who this been very successful in Supercoach. Between us, we kind of work out the issues that we're having from our teams and that, and get more data and facts because of that. So yeah, it's important to rely on each other and that because there's sometimes there might be something you've missed and somebody out there might go, actually no, have you thought about this? So no, definitely
Yep.
reach out for each other and
Well,
and
even the Booku scenario where I was pretty much considering going him, and then Chris is talking about, well, obviously the tours at West
yeah.
Coast, etc. And that's pretty much what we do in the chat group, where you say, hey, I'm thinking about this person, and unless they're talking about, oh, like, hey, I'm going Brad Crouch, and everyone just shits on them.
There are
Like,
reasons
well,
for that, mate.
because they do get carried away. Like, some groups are like, always have those mates that just carried away about value. Like, oh, this person or this person. And then pretty much they were pretty quick to be like, mate, we're first. Come on now. We're coming first as a league overall. Don't go doing stupid stuff right now. So,
You know,
um,
I keep saying to him about Abdul being seventh. He's going to probably do it this week and watch Crouch come out and do another 140 and be like, "Why didn't we
Abdul
jump on the fucking
Abdul will
Crouch?"
win. Abdul will win
He
overall. And
will. He'll
I
bring
am
in Crouch
convinced.
and he'll win overall. Watch it happen.
I am convinced that he's got some kind of forecasting situation where he's done this before and he just knows all the right moves to make because every single decision he makes is literally rolled in gold. So, not too impressed. That's it from us, everyone. SC Insider 100. Don't forget SC Insider 100 on manscaped.com. Get your 20% off and free shipping. Also, check out splashvodka.com.au. Go check them out as well. And also, like, subscribe, give us some love on the YouTube as well. Really loving the appreciation. Time spent is money earned.
Yep.
And that's it.
And go out and get a beanie too, guys, and that support the charity. The Big Freeze is coming up in 2 or 3 weeks, I think, or it might be 3 weeks. So definitely get a
Mate,
great cause.
Swizz wearing his beanie. I had to break mine out. It was right next to me from last year. So I bought Chris one last year. I wonder if he'll buy me one back. Probably not, the cheap bastard. So that's it from us. Lots of love. We'll talk to you soon. Thursday, I believe we'll get out there with our individual teams once the teams are announced. Check it out. I think all of us are a little bit different strategies, different teams. So I think it's a good way for people to check out, especially this time of the year, saying, hey, well, what's his team looks like? What's his strategy look like based on his team? And that's why I like how all three of us do it individually. We don't collaborate that. We pretty much just get on there, talk about our teams, and it's very much individual. So go check that out and get those likes in there and follow our journey.
No, sounds good, mate. And always good to
That's
be
it.
here. See you later.
Thanks, Swizz. I look forward to reusing the wasted logo and putting that on Chris's face this week. That's it from us. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.